Tuesday, January 5th, 2016. This is your morning edition on I-24 News. Coming up later today, a manhunt after a suspected terrorist continues in and around Tel Aviv as Israeli ministers call for easing gun control to allow more civilians to arm themselves. Sarah in the spotlight for the second time in 5 days. Police question Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's wife over allegations of misuse of public funds. And later on the show, no snow in Europe this January means exploring new winter sports and frontiers. Stay with us, we'll tell you all about it. Good morning, I'm Yael Lavie, and we begin today straight here in Israel yet again. We're 5 days into the manhunt for Nashat Milhem, the terrorist suspected of killing 2 people and injuring 8 in an attack in central Tel Aviv on Friday still continues. His status, presumed to be dangerous and at large in the Tel Aviv metropolis, looms over the entire country. It is rare in Israel where assailants are commonly shot or apprehended on the spot for a police operation of this nature to carry on for so long, and especially in the city of Tel Aviv. Life in the city that doesn't sleep has, at the very least, slowed in these past few days. Following the attack, many people are reluctant to follow the government and police urgings to go about their daily lives. And seeing as the police has also announced yesterday that the terrorist is at large and may be planning another attack in Tel Aviv, people are opting to stay at home, some of them. Let's watch first their latest on the manhunt and take it from there.
The manhunt continued Monday for Nashat Milhem, the perpetrator of Friday's attack in central Tel Aviv, which killed 2 people and injured 8 others. Police are still searching areas of Tel Aviv, though the possibility that Milhem may have managed to escape the city is not being ruled out. The working assumption is that Milhem also murdered a taxi driver whose body was found in northern Tel Aviv Friday following the attack. There has been some criticism over police handling the case so far, including the issue of transparency and the lack of information being revealed to the public. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu ordered the release of recent photos of Milhem over the objections of police, the Shin Bet security service, and his own Minister for Internal Security. Milhem's father has used the media in an attempt to communicate with his son.
I want to address my son. If you are willing to cooperate and call me so that we can settle these matters, I would be very appreciative.
2 of Milhem's brothers are currently in custody as part of the investigation. One was detained Monday morning. He is expected to remain in custody for at least 3 more days. Another brother was detained on Friday following the attack. His attorney was optimistic he could be released by Tuesday.
Now, in response to Friday's attack and out of concern for what may come next, some in the Israeli government are renewing their calls for citizens to arm themselves, arguing that armed citizens have succeeded in foiling or at least minimizing previous attacks in the last 100 days of violence that have rocked both Israel and the West Bank. Public Security Minister Gilad Erdan is trying to make it legal for off-duty security guards to carry their weapons with them. And our next guest in studio took things a step further, calling on the government to ease the restrictions on gun license, allowing more citizens to carry and use them if necessary. So I want to say good morning to Likud member and member of Knesset, Amir Ohana. Good morning to you. I want to thank you very much for being with us. And also joined in studio, of course, by I-24 News contributor Ami Kaufman, who I can't do anything without. Good morning. Good morning. Mr. Ohana, I want to ask you.
Yes.
I've read you, I've heard you, and you know, let's put it this way. I'm half American. In the United States, a mass shooting, which is considered to be any case where a gun kills more than 3 people, occurs once a day. It's happening in a country where gun laws are very relaxed. Do you really think that given the violence in Israel, to give civilians more guns, more weapons, more instruments that kill is the solution?
My suggestion is nothing like what happens in the United States. I don't suggest that everyone could go into a supermarket and purchase a firearm. What I suggest is that everyone who has no criminal record, who has no psychiatric record that is relevant, and serves in the reserve army, which means the state gives him an offensive automatic weapon for 30 days a year and tells him, keep your state, guard us. He could carry a firearm for the rest of the year, which is a defensive firearm, a pistol, a handgun, and defend himself and his families.
Defend himself and his families, but in the environment of fear. And, you know, I'm not blaming the fear on anybody. People live in fear in the Middle East. People live in fear all over the world. I'm gonna push this again in this point. Anybody, you know, relaxing these gun laws for people who serve in the reserve military, walking around with guns in the streets of the cities, of urban life. That's what you're suggesting.
Look, 8 out of the dozens of terror attacks we have seen for the last few months were foiled by citizens carrying a firearm. Take a look at the pictures of the victims. Take a look at the pictures of those who have died in these terror attacks. They could have been saved if there was someone with a firearm shooting the terrorists, like what happened in Friday. There was no one around to draw a pistol and shoot him and stop the mass killing.
But in an environment, let me ask you this, because you mentioned very, things that are correct, but in an environment where people also, after an attack, jump on the wrong man at times and kill him, as happened in Beersheba, I believe it was in Beersheba, and lynch an innocent man, doesn't that raise the possibility that if so many people carry guns around the country, they can also shoot down the wrong assailant?
It is a possibility. I cannot say that it wouldn't happen, of course. But I think given the security issues that we are dealing with, which is nothing like America, with all due respect, we should protect ourselves.
Why is it nothing like America? I mean, at the end of the day, that's
because
a place
we suffer more terror attacks than America, obviously.
No, well, I mean, people in the United States, they would argue differently, but then giving guns in the hands of civilians, first of all, your opinion, but we also have people with us on the phone, obviously, from the opposition who do not think that should be the case. And looking at that, joining us right now on the phone is someone who feels completely different, and that is Meretz member, and Meretz is an opposition party in the Israeli government. Tamar Zandberg, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Well, we're speaking in a situation where this morning, in the city that we're at right now, people are still afraid, 5 days into the manhunt. A suggestion from Mr. Ohana in studio that I'm sure you've heard over the course of the last several days, relax gun control for Israeli civilians so they'll be able to secure themselves. What do you think?
Yes, first of all, it's hard for me to understand how this conclusion comes out of the specific event on Friday and the ongoing event, given the fact that the mass killing or the terror attack, we don't really know yet how to define that, on Friday was being conducted by a security guard weapon of the father of the shooter. So that shows us that many times the security weapons and the security arms is not only in the hands of the security guards, but can also leak into others around them that might be criminal offenders, that might be maybe mentally unstable, or that might be terrorists. So this shows us the very exact danger or potential danger that such a suggestion might bring. Another point is, and I think member of Knesset Ohana and others totally overlook the possibility that this weapon is not only being used in arenas of terror attacks or murders or killings of any kind, but also they're being used at home. And they're being turned against, especially women and children, in the domestic arena, and they kill over there. And I'm sure we can agree that the lives of the women and children and other people, innocent people in the domestic streets and homes, are not less precious than the ones of innocent people being killed in terror attacks.
No.
And it has been proven over the years that when more weapons being distributed on the streets and in the civil places and not in the hands of the security forces, it kills more innocent people, not only in places like the terror attack place on Friday, but also elsewhere. And I think this is a danger that we should also take into consideration, because in the end of the day, lives is lives, and innocent people being killed are innocent people being killed. It doesn't matter where and how.
Mr. Amr, if you can stay with us, there is a fair argument in that.
Police statistics shows clearly that the vast majority of the murders within the family, in which women are usually being murdered,
the victims
are made by knives, axes, hammers, and not by firearms.
Maybe because they don't have the guns.
No, because we do have guns, actually. Take a look now. The law in Israel says that everyone who is a major in the army, and the interior minister, the security interior minister, Gilad Ardan, has raised it to a lieutenant, can purchase a firearm. We don't see we don't see a phenomena of husbands murdering their wives. It's not a phenomena. It's something that happens, sadly, once every few years.
Human rights activists would argue differently with you. It doesn't happen once every few years.
You can just look at the cases, look at the statistics. It's not a phenomenon. It happens, unfortunately. But it's not something that happens every day, every week, every month. It doesn't.
It actually does.
Not with a handgun.
Not with a handgun, and that's exactly the point. And that's why I'm asking you, why then make it available to have guns to people who might
because I think we suffer more and we are threatened more by terror attacks than we are in other criminal activities in Israel.
In other
so can I ask you, what would you say to a woman that is suffering from domestic abuse at her home?
Purchase a gun. This is what I will say to her. Purchase a gun. Defend yourself. And the thing I can say in favor of my friend Tamar Zandberg is that she is at least consistent with denying Israelis the right to defend themselves. When dozens and hundreds of rockets flying from Gaza to the cities of Israel, they say, don't shoot back, don't shoot back. Jews and Arabs refuse to be enemies.
I know, but I think we're going to let Ms. Zandberg actually answer for herself. Tamar Zandberg, if you can hear us.
Yes, I can hear you. Well, it's a little bit funny that only yesterday we heard two different ministers in the government saying that maybe the terror attacks are not that bad because more people are being killed in car accidents. So maybe member of Knesset Ohana thinks that domestic violence is more dangerous than terror attacks, and maybe that's not that bad. If he wants to join that argument, I think that if we look at the lives that are being taken, they're being taken everywhere, and they're being taken more when more guns and more arms are being distributed in the civil, around civil people where they're not supposed to be. I trust the IDF. I trust the police. The arms should be given in the hands of those trained to use them, of those who are supposed to use them, and not in the hands of people that the government is supposed to tell them, go and defend yourself because we cannot defend you.
The fact is that we cannot have a police officer in every corner, and even in the best scenarios, it would take them 2-3 minutes to arrive to any terror attacks. If we would have more people carrying firearms, and I'm talking about law-keeping without a criminal record, citizens, who couldn't defend themselves and the environment.
I'm going to have to argue back, but before we, move this along, the idea of, and just trailing back, as you said that if, a woman who's being abused in the home, she should go get a gun and protect herself. I'm sure you understand that, a woman who's in a situation of abuse probably will not go get a gun and defend herself, but that's a different discussion.
Carmela Buchbut would argue differently.
She would argue differently, but as you said, that's not the phenomenon. That's not part of that. In that respect, though, if the police and soldiers, are we saying that the police and the IDF cannot handle the situation right now?
Well, it's not that they cannot handle, but when we're talking about a terror attack that is only in the offensive's mind, and he comes and takes a knife, an axe, or a firearm, as happened on Friday, it's very difficult to foil because it's not an organization, as we've seen in last events. It's not an organization. It's someone who clearly wants to kill Jews, as many Jews as he can, because otherwise, if it was just a mental case, he would kill people in Wadi Ara, where he lives. But he came to Tel Aviv to kill Jews. And we should foil that. We should be able to protect ourselves. This is what I'm saying.
The argument against something like that, I think, is best actually exemplified in the United States these days, and in a very timely way. I'm going to refer us to President Obama vis-a-vis Ami Kaufman right now. President Obama actually is trying to do, as Israel is trying to relax gun control. In the United States, we're seeing something completely different.
The opposite. As we know, President Obama has been trying to get more gun control for years now, unsuccessfully. So he is going to bypass Congress, basically, by executive action. People are saying that this is more... the issue of bypassing Congress is the big deal here, not the actual tweaks that Obama is doing. We're basically talking about more background checks, more federal examiners of these checks, like 230 more people that are going to be going through these checks. We're also talking about the gun show loophole, which is basically where they're going to try to close this loophole where people can go to a gun show, buy from a private seller a gun, or online a gun without having background checks. You could do that without any background checks.
Without any background
checks. Now people are going to have to be able to do that.
And we have a report about that. Let's take a look quickly.
At gun shows just like this one over the weekend in Virginia, hundreds of firearms are sold, often with no background check. This is considered an assault weapon. Sales brisk in part of that executive action planned by the White House.
Obama's the reason.
Virginia today not much different from when 2020 watched as the brother of one of the Virginia Tech massacre victims trying to raise awareness of the loophole legally buying an armful of guns at a Virginia gun show with no background check.
Went up to him, how much you want for it? $450, here's the cash, thanks. See you later.
But tonight, the executive order being considered would affect many of those sellers who supplement their income with gun sales, calling on them to register as federal firearms dealers.
This is not going to solve every violent crime in this country. It's not going to prevent every mass shooting. It will potentially save lives.
Critics took aim even before the details came out.
Now this president wants to act as if he's a king.
The gun show loophole would not have affected most of the recent mass shooters. Those sales were typically through federal gun dealers, and background checks were done. Pierre Thomas, ABC News, Washington.
Mr. Ohana of the Likud Party, when I see that, and again, I say, the availability of guns, in no simpler terms, leads to no good in many ways. When you're looking at the United States, that does not concern you in putting guns in more hands of civilians in Israel?
Actually, what we have just seen is nothing like what I suggest. Furthermore, I accept President Obama's ideas. If we have his ideas, this is what I'm asking for. I'm not saying that people should go into the supermarket and purchase a gun, but they should have a background check, both criminally and mental health. More than Obama, I'm more restricted than Obama. I'm saying only people who served in the army should accept it, which is very, I think, moderate, responsible, and reasonable.
I'm just saying that President Obama is trying to lower the number of guns on the street, whereas you are actually trying to do the opposite, because President Obama is trying to face the fact, the consistent research that shows, not only in America, but in other countries as well in the West, that more guns equals more deaths.
In the United States, you have one gun for each person, if you check the numbers.
That's right.
Legal. In Israel, you have 4%. So I am saying we should have more, but not as more as in the United States.
I think that debate will continue as it is heatedly contested and debated in the United States. I want to thank you both as we move along.